What's one thing on your plate that artificial intelligence could take off? Hi there, I'm Stan Baker along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young, hosts of Circle Forum. We're retired educators who worked in Ontario in adjacent school boards with restorative practices, and now we're coaching principals in restorative practices. Our guest this episode is Jessica Leese, Deputy Head Teacher of Teaching and Learning, Cairo English School. There's a lot of silence around schools about principals using AI. And Jessica says, let's have a conversation about it. Let's have an open conversation about this.
This episode is brought to you by some little-known facts about AI using the AI-generated voice of Paula. 1. AI can use sentiment analysis for patterns in emails, surveys, and reflections to detect signs of burnout or disengagement in staff so that principals can support early. 2. AI can reduce time for repetitive writing tasks by as much as 70% with things like meeting summary tools. 3. AI does best when used to amplify expert decision-making, like analyzing School Savers data for patterns, and acts as a magnifying glass.
Our website, www.restorative.ca, is for principals who deal with conflict, who want to make it right in schools, and who want to make it about kids learning. If all of this makes you feel even more overwhelmed in your busy role, send me an email, stan@restorative.ca. And let's join the podcast now with our hosts, Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan. What's your experience been with artificial intelligence and the leaders that you've worked with?
I think there's a divide there. The conversations are very secret. I know that more people are using it within the classrooms and leaders themselves, but for some reason, they're not open to having these conversations. And I think that's the wrong approach, to be honest. I think that these are conversations we need to start having because we're very much exploring the new technology that's coming through, and it's not going to stop and it's not going to slow down. And if we look outside of education and we look to all industries, they are using AI, they are using ChatGPT. So really, we have a responsibility as leaders to encourage these positive conversations within the school to discuss how we use it, what ethical implications that we do need to consider. Then how do we embed that within our curriculum? Because we have to train the students. Their futures look very different to when we were coming out of school. So I think for me as a leader, one of the things that I want to promote is, hey, I'm using AI. I use AI as an assistant in my role. It doesn't do the role for me. I still need my experience. I still need my knowledge and my understanding, but I'm lessening my workload and I will use it as an assistant to help me function better in my job. How can I help you with also using AI? How can we reduce your workload? How can we improve your output to ultimately assist the students in your classroom? But then how can we get students comfortable also using AI and not being secretive and not hiding those conversations from their teachers as well? Because this isn't going to stop. I think I was watching something that said we're on an invisible staircase. We can't see where it's going to go, how far it's going to go, but we know we're going to keep going up. And right now, I think a lot of people in that exploration stage, I'm certainly not a master of AI by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that this is something that's going to grow and I can grow with it and learn with it, or I can stagnate and stay back. And I'm choosing the opposite. I'm choosing to be open about these conversations.
Your conversation that you're talking about AI, it sounds like every conversation I had all the years I was a principal with any technology, anything new coming in. There's always those people that resist change and they don't see the positives and so on and so forth. How do you work with those people who are the most resistant? How do you bring them along with not just AI, but any new technological advancement?
I think the conversations that I find most useful are saying asking a teacher, what's your most common issue? What are you struggling with right now? If we could take 3 things off of your plate or we can reduce them, what would those 3 things be? And then starting the conversation that way and showing them why we need it and why we can use it and how we can use it. So if a teacher says to me, I'm spending all this time on feedback and students aren't really engaging in this feedback, I will sit there and I'll show them, okay, how can we have a better approach to giving student feedback? How can we make this a quicker approach as well? They're not in the same situation that I was in, where you're spending all of your evenings and weekends writing out paragraphs of feedback that, to be honest, student probably won't read. And if they do read it, they're going to forget about it the next day. So I think taking what teachers want, identifying what their issues are, and then showing them a different way is a better way to have a conversation than to go in and go, this is amazing, this is a fun tool, let's play around with it. Because I would put my hands up and go, no, I like the way that I do things. How I do things is effective. I don't need a new toy to play with. If someone could sit there and show me, actually, here's a program that can do this for you, or you can save time this way, or anything like that, I think teachers are more open to that conversation. I don't know any teacher that would sit there and say to me, no, you know what, I'm happy spending my evenings working. I'm happy spending my weekends working. So if we can show them that they can have a little bit more of a life, I find that's a better conversation than going heavy footed and going, no, we are doing this, whether you like it or not, this is what we're doing.
Resistance to change often comes from fear or lack of understanding, right? So I have my thoughts about AI, and we've had this discussion, and I am growing and evolving for sure, because I do see the power of it. But what are some of the fears of people, or what kind of things do they put up as resistance of why it is not a good thing to be using in education? What are the concerns about using AI from parents or from educators? Yeah.
From educators, it's more the ethical stance of things. What is AI remembering? What data are we putting into it? And does this breach data protection? Do we want to be putting students' names and information in? No, we don't. So if I was to do this with students or staff, we have code. So I'll place the student name. I just open the Excel, and it's very simple, 2-minute task. I'll have a number column instead. And I keep off the student names, but I can still match them up. With staff, we have initials. So I'll put the initials through. And I think it's making parents aware as well that we're not putting in their children's data. We're doing it in an anonymous way, where no one's going to track them down, because I think the fear comes from the unknown. But then when you have these conversations with parents and they're saying, well, I don't want my students using AI, I feel like this is cheating, or they're not going to learn this way. My first response to them is, do you use AI in your job? And 9 times out of 10, they say, yeah. Like, okay, so do you not think it's good that we sit and we teach students how to use platforms like this, how to use tools like this? Because when they go into the workplace, what we have right now, in my opinion, is the most basic version it's ever going to be. It's going to keep adapting. So let's teach students how to use it. Let's teach teachers how to use it. Let's teach parents how to use it. And everybody should be part of that conversation. We should be having parent voice coming into this conversation as well as student voice. I really don't think that leaders should be the one that dictate what is happening with something like this. Whether we like it or not, it's coming.
So how have you used AI as a leader, and how have you seen other leaders in schools use AI?
I started off really small. I didn't really, and I still don't master AI at all. But to start with, it was simple things like analyzing a survey that I'd done, have a look at the feedback from the survey and give me some patterns, or show me the trends and use that information. It would be looking at summarizing notes from a meeting and putting them together in a meeting form to email out, or email responses, just really basic forms of AI, to then transitioning and moving through to performance management. So we'd have a look at the performance management targets for our teachers. Each teacher sets 2 targets within the year, and we recently changed how we do CPD with the teachers to a more targeted approach and a more differentiated approach as well. So I'd put that through AI and I'd go, okay, this is what my teachers' performance managements are. This is what I want to achieve. And we'd split it up into different categories. So we would base their performance management, whether or not it was a leadership pathway that they want to take, if it was a stretch and challenge and mastery, if it was subject knowledge, and it categorized all the teachers into different areas. but also gave action plans for different teachers as well. And it took a little bit of time to get the prompts right. I think the prompts are everything. But the more I explore it, the more it can assist me and help me with more detailed parts of my job. Still use it for emails. It's still my favorite thing to do, especially if I'm writing an angry email. I might just say to it, like, tone it down a little bit, make it a little bit more friendly.
Isn't that great? I've had that too, where I wanted to tell somebody to jump off a cliff, and what it basically came back with, that line in your email gave me pause. And it was just kind of, oh, perfect. Now, I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, what were some of the prompts that you used initially, and what have you changed your prompts to that have really, because I think the prompts are key, aren't they?
They are. I'm still playing with my prompts a little bit. So I've started putting together a document just myself with prompts that work better. To start with, I'd say write me a staff email just to say that we have a meeting on Tuesday, 6 p.m. And then but it'd be really generic. And I'll respond back, okay, the location's here and this is the agenda, and it will come up with a little bit more. And I think the more details that you can put in the prompt, the better. So who's your audience that you want that to go to? What are the finer details that you want to put into the prompt? Be really specific with what you're asking it to do. But it doesn't, or in my experience, it doesn't generate the first time what I'm happy with. I see that as my first draft, and I'll read it and I go, okay, I've got some really good points from that, but I still need 1, 2, 3. And it will take me a few times to do it, but it works. And I think the more you play with it, the more adept you come to it, and the more confident you come with it.
Can you give us some examples of what you've seen from leaders that you've worked with, colleagues or your immediate supervisors, where they've used AI?
I think from my experience, mostly everyone's pretty secretive about it. Now, when you're getting the emails coming to, you can spot AI a mile away. You really can spot an AI email just from the tone and the language that it's using. So I know that it's being used. For some reason, the leaders in my school are a little bit more secretive. One of the leaders, and I think this is where we have to be really careful, she had done something with AI, and it was quite an important thing as well, but she hadn't ran eyes through it. And then it went out to all staff and it wasn't right. It didn't match up. Everything about it was wrong. I've seen lesson observations. I've done a joint learning walk or a lesson observation, and what they've done is they've put their bullet points through AI, sent it to me, and I've had to respond to say that didn't happen. When I've highlighted certain parts and I'm like, that didn't happen in a classroom, or that's not in context, or this has been misunderstood. So you have to check it. But it's not 100% accurate. It's going to come up with mistakes. And even if you ask it to do a marking scheme for an exam, you need to check that marking scheme because it's not always correct. And one of the ways that we started to do that was to go, can you double check the answers on this and make sure they're all accurate? And I can tell you half the time it comes back and it's, oh, sorry, I've made a mistake here. And it will redo a new one. So you've still got to have your eyes on everything.
What you're leading into now is some of the cautions, and you've named a few there. So any other cautions you can think of? The eyes on and the double checking, not assuming that it's getting it right every time or in the context that you want it to be in. Any other cautions that you give to staff?
Don't let it do your job for you. Use it as an assistant, use it as a tool to help you. You still need to be able to do your job. And I think what I'm seeing, or what I have seen in some teachers, is they are becoming heavily reliant on AI and ChatGPT and Canva or Diffie or something like that, where they're producing most of the material that's happening in the classroom, but AI is not there to help you answer student questions. If you can't break down certain concepts, you can't bring yourself down. You've got to keep up with your subject. You've got to keep up with your knowledge. We need to understand that the human form and the relationships that we have with people we work with and students that we teach, they're important too. So I think we do have to be cautious with it and not become too reliant on it whilst helping it achieve the goals that we do want to achieve.
Now, we're all about talking about relationships and see relationships as a basis for learning. How does AI either enhance relationships between colleagues, leaders, and those that they lead, or not?
I don't think it does. I don't think AI, it doesn't have the human function. It can't give you a hug. It can't give you a coffee on a bad day. It can't give you a, oh, well done, that was an excellent lesson, or the job to the student who's just got the highest grade on the test. It doesn't have that familiarity. It doesn't have that human touch, that human nature. So whilst I think that our role as a teacher will likely change and definitely will change with technology continue to advance, it can never replace us in that side of things, on the more pastoral side of things.
It seems to me that it's an opportunity for everyone to say, look, here's a new thing for all of us, myself included, if I'm the leader. And yeah, I don't know everything here. Let's explore this together. And suddenly, I think it has the opportunity to create a very level playing field that we're all learning this together. Whoops, that didn't go well. I guess we better not do that again. Or, wow, that was amazing.
Oh, for sure. I think the collaborative leadership here plays a huge role. Just because we're a leader in a school doesn't mean we know everything. And there's a lot that I don't know. And I learn a lot from my teachers on a daily basis, including AI. People are better than me at certain things, or even the basics where I walk into a lesson just to observe what's going on, and I'll walk out inspired because of something a teacher has done that I hadn't thought of before, or they've taken a different approach to what I necessarily would have done. And I've thought to myself, you know what, that's better than I could do. So then I would try it in my own classroom. But we have to move away. I think as educators, we're scared to fail, and we're scared to fail publicly. And we can't. We have to hold our hands up and go, oh, we made a mistake. I do it to my students all the time. I was teaching accounting, and my mental math is not fantastic. My mental math is a little bit slower. And some of my students were quicker at mental math than me. So I would do something, and it was my first class of accounting that I was teaching, and I would do it. Because I was rushing, I was making mistakes, and it was the students that were going, miss, that's not quite right. And I was like, oh, sorry. And it was, I wouldn't get embarrassed. I would just say I'd show my flaws to students, and I show my flaws to staff as well. I think we have to come together in a safe environment and go, you know what, we do make mistakes. All of us make mistakes. More importantly, what have we learned from these mistakes? How can we improve next time?
Here's where you start. Use AI as a workload reducer and a tool to help, not replace, professional judgment. There needs to be adequate consideration for what is ethical, what is private, and what involves consent. Adopting AI is a huge opportunity for principals and teachers to model curiosity and vulnerability as they promote innovation in schools. And we're not stopping this conversation. We want your perspective as well. What resonated with you about AI, and what challenges do you face? Take a few minutes to share your thoughts on the link that's in the podcast description. AI presents schools with tremendous possibilities led by principals who use AI. Now, if all of this is overwhelming, email me, stan@restorative.ca, so we can have a conversation about having a conversation about AI.